on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Checkwitz. This is the Kaged Review, and this is my revisited review for Avengers Endgame. And it's never a bad thing when you get to go and watch Avengers Endgame again. Infinity War and Endgame, really two movies that make one conclusion for 10 years worth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's very rare that you have this much build-up for something and the creators actually stick the landing. They really stuck the landing with this one. And actually, I think I like this movie a bit more watching it a few times over than I did initially. I really did like the movie. I did feel like it wasn't quite as good as Infinity War. Infinity War was absolutely insane, beginning to end. But the more I go back and watch this, the more it's like it's just a love letter to the fans of Marvel Comics. And so I really appreciated a lot of things that they did with this. And so you end off Infinity War with Thanos. He snaps his fingers. Half the universe's population just disappears, including a lot of the Avengers. And they took away most of the newer Avengers that they brought out, like Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man. They kept the old school cats. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk. They kept that first, six Avengers. And so here they are, they're dejected, they, had a massive loss here. You start out with Tony Stark and Nebula. They're in a spacecraft that are trying to come back from Titan, but they run out of fuel, and so they're just kind of adrift in space. They're about to run out of air, and then boom, out of nowhere, here comes Captain Marvel, because we had that end scene in Captain Marvel when she first meets the Avengers. And so she goes and saves Tony Stark, brings his ship back to Earth. Another really, this is the one, really weak point in the movie. So, Paul Rudd in Ant-Man and the Wasp, he went into this quantum tunnel that was built into the back of a van. And then the people who were supposed to bring him out disappeared with the snap. And so, a rat steps on the control panel, and magically he just kind of pops out. That was a little weak, but that's the only thing that was really weak about the movie. Paul Rudd, he immediately goes to the Avengers location, whatever the hell it's called, and he is running through his mind about the quantum tunnel and the fact that it felt like 5 years was 5 hours. And maybe you can go back through the quantum tunnel to a specific point in time and basically use it like a time machine. And so they bring that up and they do some testing. Initially, they go to Tony Stark, who now has a daughter with Pepper Potts, and he doesn't really want anything to do with it initially. So they go to Bruce Banner, who is now Professor Hulk. And this is kind of like the end of the Hulk storyline where, you had Planet Hulk and Thor Ragnarok, and then he didn't want to show up at all after Thanos whipped his ass. And now you see Professor Hulk, which is the combination of Bruce Banner and the Hulk, the best of both worlds. So he does some testing with the with the quantum tunnel and the time machine bit and kind of moving Paul Rudd through time. Doesn't quite go the way they want. And of course, at the same time, Tony Stark is trying to figure this out, and of course does, because it's Tony Stark. So they come up with this idea of going back through time and getting all 6 Infinity Stones and bringing them back to present day. And that's really the first 2/3 of the movie. You have everybody going to, honestly, scenes in movies we've seen prior and just showing them in different ways. For example, Iron Man, Captain America, and Hulk wind up going to New York when the Chitauri came down in the first Avengers movie. And so you see a lot of the events of Avengers 1 kind of replayed in a different way. You have Hulk going to the Ancient One, played by Tilda Swinton. And you kind of replay, kind of the birth of that. They're talking about Stephen Strange before he was ever part of, their little magic group. And you have the Soul Stone, which we all know about the Soul Stone if you watched Infinity War. And as fate would have it, you have Cliff Barton and Natasha Romanoff, Hawkeye and Black Widow, respectively, going to find the Soul Stone. And so there were some very cool things there. You have Rocket and Thor go to Asgard, and it was actually on the day his mother died. So there was actually some really cool scenes as far as characters getting closure. Thor gets to talk to his mother again, and he kind of feels a little better about that afterwards. You see Natalie Portman as Jane Foster. They take the ether from her when it had attached itself to her. Tony Stark has to go even further back in time with Captain America because they botched the first trial to get the Tesseract. And so he runs into his father in one of these offices. And so there is a really cool scene with Tony Stark and Howard Stark. Howard Stark obviously doesn't realize that it's his son he's talking to. And it's at a time where Howard Stark's wife is pregnant with Tony, and there's Tony talking to him. So it was really cool, man. They did a lot of really, like I said, a big time fan service bit for a lot of these characters, and I really love that. But I haven't mentioned the Power Stone yet, and that's because War Machine and Nebula go to Morag to find the Power Stone. This is where Peter Quill initially grabs it and he runs into Korath. But Nebula warns War Machine, there's a bunch of people looking for this stone at this time. And he's like, well, who's looking for it? And she says, well, one of the people is me. And so they flash to Nebula, who is in a fight with Gamora. And they get called back to Thanos. Thanos says he found one of the Infinity Stones. And then while he's talking to Nebula, present day Nebula's memories flash through past Nebula's computer mainframe mind. And so it was a way of letting know to Thanos what's happening and what the Avengers are doing. And so they wind up capturing present day Nebula and putting past Nebula in with present day Avengers. And so they wind up getting all the stones, and of course the Soul Stone, Red Skull, gives the same speech he did in Infinity War to Black Widow and Hawkeye. And so they're like, whatever it takes, and they're kind of fighting each other to jump over the cliff. And it winds up that kind of Natasha Romanoff wins the fight and of course dies. And so Cliff Barton gets the Soul Stone, and that was the first major casualty in this movie. But had a lot of gravity to it. I mean, it was a big moment. So they all return with all 6 stones. Hulk is made of gamma energy, and these stones apparently emit mostly gamma radiation, and so he thinks he's the only one strong enough to actually do this. And so he grabs the Infinity Gauntlet, he puts it on, he snaps his fingers, it hurt like hell. And then he succeeds in bringing everybody back, and at the exact same time that they're focused, the Avengers are focused on bringing everybody back, past Nebula, who has infiltrated them, is bringing Thanos through this time portal. And so Ant-Man's at the window. He's like, I think it worked. And then all of a sudden you see a bunch of just torpedoes or whatever coming down from Thanos' ship, just raining fire on the Avengers place and just blows it to hell. And then the madness ensues, and you have this big, massive Endgame fight, which lasted almost an hour between Thanos and his crew and the Avengers. And it really starts a bit smaller. It starts with Thanos, Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man. Obviously the latter 3 taking on Thanos. And it had some great, great moments in here. There was one moment where Thanos was trying to push Stormbreaker, the big axe, through Thor's chest. And you see Mjolnir, the hammer, come back and smack Thanos. And then, you pull back and it's Captain America who is able to pick up Mjolnir. So that was a big fan moment right there within itself. And there was a great fight there where Captain America just goes off on Thanos for a minute. Of course, Thanos turns it around. And then there comes a point where Thanos is like, I've never really enjoyed what I do. It's always been dispassionate. And he's like, but I'm going to enjoy killing everybody on Earth. And so he starts bringing down the Chitauri army and all his alien fighters, and the children of Thanos are coming back. Ebony Maw is there. And then you hear Sam Wilson, Falcon say, on your left. And that opens up a bunch of portals where everybody who was snapped away in Infinity War comes back. You got Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, all the Guardians of the Galaxy. And so you have all the main Avengers and a lot of like minor Avengers too that make up this massive cast on the Avengers side, and it was phenomenal. I don't know that I've ever seen this many characters in a single fight before, and it was insane all the way through. They did have the one part where, they had the female empowerment moment, which I don't care, that's cool. It doesn't do much for me either way. If it's done well, it's done well, and it was done well. So, it was fantastic. At the end, Thanos winds up getting the glove. Originally, they were trying to take the glove, the Infinity Gauntlet, to the quantum tunnel in that van that was in the middle of this fight. Thanos destroys the van, so now it's just a fight to get the Infinity Gauntlet. Thanos winds up getting it. Captain Marvel comes down, who hasn't been here for most of the movie, and I actually say thank God, because there's just too much with that dude. And thankfully, they did have a good fight between Captain Marvel and Thanos, and it wasn't Captain Marvel just overpowering Thanos. Thanos actually kind of whipped her ass. So that was good. And then here comes Iron Man. He grabs the Infinity Gauntlet. He's trying to rip it off of Thanos' hand. It doesn't work. Thanos gets the glove. He snaps his fingers, and nothing happens because while Iron Man had the glove in hand, he took the stones out of the glove. And now he's got the stones in his own Iron Man suit glove. And so Iron Man, he snaps his fingers and he kills Thanos and his entire army, much the way Thanos did in Infinity War. And so he actually sacrifices himself because the stones, the power is just too much for his body to take. So he winds up dying from the power of the Infinity Stones. And they have a big funeral with everybody in the Avengers at this funeral. It was a really well done movie. And then they have to take the Infinity Stones back to the exact point in time where they picked them up, so there's no rift in the timeline. And so Hulk sends Captain America back to do that. And Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes is there as well. And so 5 seconds later, he's supposed to bring Captain America back, but nothing happens. And so Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes start freaking out. They're like, bring him back. And then Winter Soldier sees this old guy on a bench, and he points it out to Sam Wilson. And it turns out to be Captain America. Captain America did take the stones back in time, but then he decided not to come back and just live out his life. He decided that he wanted to go back and get with Peggy Carter and have a normal life. And so they give Captain America his win. And so he passes off the Captain America shield to Sam Wilson, Falcon, which I honestly thought it should have went to Winter Soldier because he actually became the new Captain America. And actually, Sam Wilson did too. But they were like, the best of friends. So they kind of missed me on that one. But it's all right. I love Sam Wilson. I like Falcon. Anthony Mackie's great. But I just wish they kind of would have done that. Other than that, though, this film was phenomenal. You end the movie with Captain America in the past, dancing with Peggy Carter. They kiss, and that cuts to credits. And it was really just a great way to end it, and especially a great way to send off Captain America, I thought. So to grade this movie, it's obviously a 10 out of 10. It was really one of the few things that built up this big that stuck the landing. So 10 out of 10, and before I head out, I wanted to do something. I wanted to list off like most of the major characters. I've never seen a movie with this loaded of a cast before. And so I want to just really quickly run down the major players. And it's crazy. It's 2 pages long. It's nuts. So you have Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, Iron Man. You have Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, Captain America. Chris Hemsworth as Thor. Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner, Hulk. Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow. Jeremy Renner is Hawkeye, Cliff Barton. Don Cheadle is James Rhodes, War Machine. Karen Gillan is Nebula. Bradley Cooper voices Rocket. Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, Ant-Man. Brie Larson as Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. Josh Brolin as Thanos. Zoe Saldana as Gamora. Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, Falcon. Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, Black Panther. Letitia Wright as Shuri. Denai Guerrero as Okoye. Angela Bassett as Ramonda. Winston Duke as M'Baku. Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange. Palm Clementieff as Mantis. Dave Bautista as Drax the Destroyer. Vin Diesel voices Groot. Chris Pratt as Peter Quill, Star-Lord. Tom Holland as Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Benedict Wong as Wong. Kind of funny there. We have Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne the Wasp. Sebastian Stan as James Barnes, Winter Soldier. Elizabeth Olsen comes in as Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch. She had a great scene with Thanos, too. Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Renee Russo as Frigga. Natalie Portman as Jane Foster. Robert Redford as Alexander Pierce. You have Grillo as Brock Rumlow. Maximiliano Hernandez as Agent Sitwell. Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One. John Slattery as Howard Stark. Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan. Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts. Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. Taika Waititi as Korg. Haley Atwell as Agent Peggy Carter. Marissa Tomei as May Parker. Michael Douglas as Hank Pym. Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet Van Dyne. William Hurt as Secretary of State Thaddeus Ross. Colby Smulders as Maria Hill. Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, of course. Sean Gunn as Kraglin, Onset Rocket. And Ross Marquand of Walking Dead fame plays the Red Skull, which I thought was very, very cool. I didn't know that. So this is one of the most loaded casts, period. You have some actors that are new and upcoming. You have some that are very refined. You have some classical actors. You have some very good character actors. Like this huge mix, this melting pot of present and past actors, dude, that form what I think is the biggest cast I've ever seen. Like, it's insane what they did with this. And I don't think we'll ever see its like again. Honestly, I don't think in my lifetime it will be. It truly was an accomplishment. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my review of Avengers Endgame. It had some great humor to it. It had some big heartstring moments. And they really stuck the landing. So that's where I'm at. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackowitz. Kaged Nation, out.